Some new international box office numbers for Endgame are already out, and we've got a current total right now of $213 million. China is leading the way both with the total box office money and with how quickly they're reporting their numbers. They reported $28 million originally for what might be Wednesday morning, or it might not be Wednesday morning. I have a suspicion that it's not Wednesday morning. But $28 million came in, and then the total for Wednesday was $79.3 million. Now, the $28 million wasn't necessarily added to the $79 million in some of the Chinese articles. They're claiming that the $79 million was for Wednesday, and that broke the Chinese record for single-day box office. So $79 million broke their previous record for one day. And the total amount of money as of the end of Wednesday was $107 million, which was the $28 million, which may or may not be from Wednesday morning. It may be from Tuesday night, which I believe is before they're allowed to open the film, or it may be from midnight Tuesday, which is actually Wednesday, and so it is all, in fact, Wednesday money. But regardless of when exactly the $28 million came in, multiple sources are claiming there's about $107 million for Wednesday coming from China. There are also multiple reports of another $62 million from other countries for their Wednesdays, and that brings the total semi-official box office for Endgame for the Wednesday to about $169 million. For the Thursday box office, the only country that has any kind of reported numbers that I could find that are semi-credible, and these seem quite credible, is China again. China has reported another $44.3 million for Thursday, taking the total amount of money so far from China to $151.89 million. And when we add that to the Wednesday totals from those other countries, we get around about $213 million so far for the Endgame box office. To put this $213 million in perspective, here are the foreign opening weekend records from Box Office Mojo. Now, none of these are adjusted for inflation, but these are the foreign records. So these aren't the world records. World record has the foreign and the US domestic in. This is basically the US domestic ripped out. So where does $213 million fit? Well, it's just below the 14th biggest film ever, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, and just above number 15, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. So it's currently the 15th best foreign opening for a film, and this includes most countries for Wednesday and just China for Thursday. So this isn't even all of the Thursday money, this isn't any Friday money, this isn't any Saturday money, this isn't any Sunday money, and we're already at $213 million. So the number one film there, we can see The Fate of the Furious, $443 million. Number two, Avengers Infinity War, $382. This is going to smash them. Okay, it's going to absolutely smash them. I predicted that it would obviously smash them. Now, the main reason it will smash them, other than these numbers are very, very strong right now, is the $382 million for Avengers Infinity War. That doesn't include China money. Okay, even though these are the foreign records, they only still include the foreign countries that opened at the same time as the North American domestic market. And so for Avengers Infinity War, China opened about a month later, so the Chinese money isn't included. There was about $210 million from all the countries that did not open at the same time, not included in that $382 million. And if we add up all of the money from all of the countries that were not included on this opening weekend record for Infinity War, we have about $210 million. So if we add $210 million to the $380 million, we get around about $590 million. That's really what Infinity War got. So if Endgame only does exactly what Infinity War did, it will get $590 million. It will shatter the actual record here. Now, even if it goes below the $590 million, it's not going to go that much below it. So it's basically guaranteed to shatter it. Now, from what we see so far, I think it'll do a lot better than that. $213 million. Again, we still haven't got most or some of the money for Thursday. We're missing no money at all for Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So the weekend money does not include the weekend yet, just a couple of days beforehand. So $443 million. I think it's safe to say that that record will be absolutely broken. If we go back and look at Infinity War's international money, we can see here from Box Office Mojo, the record here, according to Box Office Mojo, was $382 million opening weekend at the top, foreign total. And we can see China has $191 million. That money is not included to the left of the $191 million in red there. You can see its release date was the 11th of the 5th, so it was not included because it was released after the 25th of the 4th. So that $191 million doesn't actually count. But we've got $191 million is what China made in its total real opening for Infinity War. And we've got a total for Wednesday and Thursday, maybe Tuesday, maybe not, of $151 million already. So that $190 million that China had, this will smash it, okay? This is going to smash the $190 million that China did for Infinity War. So China is going to open to more money. How much more? I really don't have any statistics to even be able to pretend to see what's happening here. But, I mean, it says that they got $44 million on Thursday. They got $78 million on the Wednesday, or maybe you could say it was $107 million on a Wednesday. So there is a reduction. So their actual opening day was far bigger than the next day. So maybe we could say we'll be lucky if we get $44 million on every subsequent day. But having said that, some of the days to come are the weekend, and you would imagine that that will boost the number of people at the movies. But if we just err on the side of caution and say, okay, let's pretend we'll just get $44 million on Friday, we'll get $44 million on Saturday, we'll get $44 million on Sunday, which I think it really should increase. But again, I don't have any real Chinese statistics to base it on. But let's just say, roughly speaking, we've got $130 million extra. We've got $151 million already. That's $280 million. That's way over the $190 million. And that's what me being, I think, quite cautious with the money. So I think China is going to absolutely smash its opening record. And it looks like the other countries right now, and again, I don't have a lot of statistics to be able to project forward, but it looks like at the very least, they're on track to match their Infinity War money. But if I had to guess, I'd say they also look like they're going to break a lot of records, or at least break their Infinity War records. Okay, some of the countries' Infinity War is not the biggest opening day, although some of them it is. But it looks to me like internationally, everywhere is going to be either on track with what they did for Infinity War or far bigger. So are we still on track to get $1 billion for the weekend? Yes, we are. We are definitely still on track to get the $1 billion. All the signs right now point to this is still completely possible. I'm not saying that it will do it. There just isn't the data here to be able to say with any confidence, oh, it's happening. But there isn't the data to go, no, unfortunately, we don't have $1 billion coming. $1 billion is completely still on the cards. Now, the crucial piece of the $1 billion, or a crucial piece of the $1 billion, is the US opening. So obviously that hasn't started yet. There's still several hours away until the first screenings in the east coast of North America, I guess all over North America actually. So we won't know if it's going to make $1 billion, obviously, until we get the crucial North America market. North America probably needs to make somewhere over $280 million for it to happen. If it does $300 million, it really should happen. But it's possible that some of the other countries can pick up the slack, if you like. And if it only gets 280, even if it got 270, it's still kind of possible. But if North America can only get $270 million, and I say only in quotes, because that will shatter the US opening record, if it only breaks the opening record by tens of millions of dollars, then it might not quite get the $1 billion. Okay, it may be touch and go, but at this stage it's really up to what we get out of North America. All the news from elsewhere is excellent, and it looks like this could happen, so we could be getting $1 billion. Now, what's the worst case scenario we're looking at here? It really has to just be what the Infinity War was if we add up all the money together. So $850 million is roughly what Infinity War opened to when we actually add all the countries together. So worst case scenario really is probably $850 million, but the early signs right now for me say it's going over $850 million. I think without a doubt, unless something really bad happens in the US market. Now, if the US market, and let's just say US and Canada market, if they don't break the record, if they don't get over $257 million or $259, whichever record you want to break, the Force Awakens with inflation or just Infinity War, that makes it just a little bit harder, because if the film isn't more popular in North America, it's hard to think that it'll also not be more popular in other countries. Okay, it's looking like it is massively popular in China, But just because it's big in China doesn't mean other countries will think it's very big. But from what I see so far, it's looking absolutely massive. It's looking on track of the higher end of the estimates. Again, without any North American money, and North America is the largest market, so we need that crucial North American money report in to really know what's happening. But at this stage, $1 billion, completely doable still. We could get $1 billion over the weekend. Now, having said that, there is a small amount of bad news for the North American market, if this news is actually accurate. I don't know if it is. I haven't been able to source a second bit of information for this, but there is an article out saying, report, Disney requires theaters to show Captain Marvel during Avengers Endgame's Thursday preview. Disney is requiring theaters to show both Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame on Thursday night, April 25th. Our source tells us that Captain Marvel will be required to be shown on Thursday night. Theaters will not be able to drop the film from screens in order to create room for Avengers Endgame. So obviously, if this is true, this is terrible news for Endgame, okay? It's going to squeeze out a few of the screens, which may stop it from breaking the record. So if it gets close to the record, but doesn't break it, this here I think you can point out that may cost it a couple of $1 million or a few $1 million here or there. So I think it's still going to break the record by such a margin that this won't matter. But this is going to cost millions of dollars, okay? And the record will not be as large as it could be. And again, possibly if it doesn't break the record, this might be what's stopping it breaking the North American opening weekend record. So on the surface, this just seems like a terrible move because it's Disney kind of stealing from Disney, and it's stealing from Disney to make one film bigger than the other one, but the one of them that they're taking the money from is the one that could have the absolute record. So on the surface, it looks like an absolute crazy idea. Why would they not just put everything to Endgame to just absolutely shatter all records? That has to be good press to break the records by as much as possible. But obviously, there's a lot of political maneuvering going on behind the scenes, and probably to do with a lot of people's bonuses. There's different people involved and who'll get bonuses depending on Captain Marvel's gross and what the Endgame gross will actually be. Plus, they also know that if people can't see Endgame on Thursday, those people are going to see it anyway. Anyone that's going to go to a Thursday preview, they're going to go watch it on the Friday or Saturday if they can't get it. So it's not really costing money, maybe. That may be what they're thinking of here. Now, the article goes on to say that the idea behind this move is to hopefully bring in more people to Captain Marvel and boost the box office sales of the Brie Larson-led movie, which is still far below the Disney domestic gross projections for the film. Disney had originally projected the film to earn $450 million at the domestic box office over the course of its run. The film has currently only grossed just over $400 million. So that number is fairly accurate, but it's a little bit misleading in that the $400 million that Captain Marvel has now, and will earn over the $400 million, that's quite high compared to what a lot of the expectations were. But the article is correct. It is quite low compared to where the expectations were also put after its opening weekend. It had a very good opening weekend for Captain Marvel. I think it's the 28th biggest North American opening ever with inflation, and it was the 6th biggest worldwide opening ever without inflation. But worldwide is a lot stronger from Captain Marvel than domestic, but $400 million is still a nice amount of money in the US market. But if you look at some of the things that I think the people at Disney were really sort of lighting their eyes up on, it's got a very similar opening weekend to a few films that actually have outperformed it by quite a bit, but it's also outperformed a lot of films around it that actually had the same opening weekend. So I think Captain Marvel's went actually around about middle of the road after its opening weekend, which is better than I thought it would do. I actually projected, whatever it was, 5 weeks ago now, I thought it would get $282 million, so it's outdone the $282 million that I thought it would actually earn. I thought it would die off a bit quicker than it actually has, mainly because I saw the film and thought it wasn't good, so I thought the film wouldn't do fantastic at the box office. I still knew it would get big money because the opening weekend was massive, but I thought it would be on the lower end of the larger money rather than on the upper end. It turns out that it's kind of right in the middle of the kind of big money, if you like. So, according to Box Office Mojo, 28th biggest opening in the North American market, $153 million, says it's currently got a $402.8 million, and if you look around it, it's done better than Fast and Furious 7. Fast and Furious 7 only got $370, but underneath it, it's done worse than Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. It got $530 million. I think one of the films they were actually eyeing up originally was the number 23 film here, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. It was a fairly newish film. It was only a couple of years old, and it opened to basically the same amount of money as Captain Marvel, and it went on to get $545 million. So I think that's what they were kind of hoping as their absolute upper range, that they thought they could get over the $540 million mark. Now, it's not done that. It's got $400 million. But if you look at some of the other films here, you can see $358 million for Iron Man 2, We've got 328 for Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 2. I think that is the lowest one here, or just above it. Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 1, $324 million. So that's the kind of range that these films made with that opening weekend. So it's done a lot better than $324 million, which, you could have gotten, but it's not got the 545. So it looks like some executives over there at Marvel are trying to do whatever they can to push Captain Marvel up. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if it's the way their bonuses are structured, and for every extra dollar they make from now on, they'll get a big chunk of cash. And it looked like to some of them, they may be looking at getting over $500 million in the US domestic market. The other reason they might be pushing it, obviously, is they have said before Endgame came out, they want Captain Marvel to be the face of the MCU. So probably just for marketing purposes, if they can squeak out more and more money for Captain Marvel, they can kind of show that what a popular film it was, because once a film's over and done, people may just forget what happened and just look at things like Box Office Mojo and go, oh look, it's the ranked blah 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 film, whatever ranking it gets. So they may just be trying to squeeze out every extra $1 million they can. But again, it does seem a little bit weird to be sacrificing what might be a very big record for Endgame to just try and get some extra money for Captain Marvel. Now, the money won't be a one-for-one. I can't imagine that if you get one screen and you take it off Endgame and give it to Captain Marvel, you're going to get more people in the Captain Marvel viewing than the Endgame viewing. That would be hard to believe. At this stage in time, Captain Marvel's been out for quite a while. But nonetheless, that's what that article reports. It's very disappointing that it may cost millions of dollars on the Endgame record, or what I think will be a record. But we will have to see what happens on Thursday. The current North American advanced screening record is $57 million for The Force Awakens. I think Endgame will beat it, but once we find out what Endgame did, we'll be able to know what's going on with this $1 billion possible for total worldwide box office opening. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.